In 1964, Godzilla was featured in two stellar entries. The first, Mothra vs. Godzilla, is widely regarded as the perfect balanced Godzilla film of the Showa series. Still a villain, but pitted against an adversary who skews closer to humanity's interests, the fourth Godzilla movie still ranks highly to this day. Bookending the same year, Godzilla returned not just with Mothra, but with Rodan and the title monster, a new kaiju who would go down as Godzilla's top nemesis. So, order a Blue Mountain.
I won't pay. Huh?
Because today's retrospective is all about Ghidorah, the three-headed monster.
Oh!
Ghidorah, or Ghidra, if you're dubbing, was one of the few Godzilla films I distinctly recall seeing on TV as a kid. Easily one of my top favorite early Showa films, the movie is a giant monster smorgasbord, wrapped up in an inane story involving flying saucer people, be they from Venus or Mars, depending on if you watch the original Japanese language with subs or the hilarious English dub. Political assassination attempts, psychic prophecies of world destruction, and the introduction of the first alien kaiju to fight the king of the monsters. Godzilla, Rodan, and Mothra all are new designs with varying degrees of success, but I will touch on that momentarily, what you really are here for. The showstopper, King Ghidorah, is a fantastic kaiju, a large golden-winged, three-headed space dragon who spews yellow bolts called gravity beams and lays siege to Japan, and he delivers. To summarize the film, we start with reporter Naoko investigating mysteries of the 20th century, a story she's writing to capitalize on strange goings-on in the world, such as a heat wave in January and meteors descending with hopes of alien contact from the group of scientists. When another team of scientists find a recently crashed asteroid on the mountains, things begin to ramp up. At the same time, a princess from the fictional nation of the Principality of Selgina is avoiding potential assassination, as she is heir to the throne of the well-placed bomb on her plane that is set to do the job. However, voices call her to jump ship before the explosion can occur. She later turns up on the shores of Japan, not quite herself. She claims to be from another planet, again, Mars or Venus, and begins spouting prophecies of doom, which garners the attention of local authorities, who seek to protect her from a team of hitmen from her country and conveniently assigns Naoko's brother Shindo to guard, while she herself attempts to get more material for her story from her. Of her many predictions, both Godzilla and Rodan begin to terrorize the country and each other in a battle that dominates a good portion of the second act. It is at this point when the mysterious meteor in the mountain hatches, birthing King Ghidorah, who begins his own campaign of world destruction. The final prediction of the princess, she confesses that this is the same space demon that ravaged her home world centuries ago and will do the same to Earth. In a last-ditch effort, the government calls on the help of the Shojobin, the twin fairy priestesses of Mothra, to urge their deity to step in and set shit straight. Despite being the remaining caterpillar from Mothra vs. Godzilla, the diminutive kaiju reluctantly agrees, fighting a bout of depression after the recent loss of her mom and sibling, the latter off-screen. Mothra confronts the squabbling Godzilla and Rodan and lectures the two to behave and join in to put a stop to the world-ending Ghidorah. The final act is a monster mash not before seen on this scale, with all three Earth monsters going full Avengers and kicking the three-headed kaiju out of Earth. Oh, and yeah, the hitmen die too. The princess regains her consciousness and returns to her country, leaving Shindo with a pair of the bluest balls the series has had to offer at this point. The end. Yes, it's a lot, but it's fun and engaging, and all the zany science and monster mayhem makes for a high mark of the series. The atmosphere has a hazy, ethereal quality that makes the previous entry feel very straightforward and more coherent at times, and Akira Ifukube's music is memorable and often repeated and pulled from the score in future films. Both Ghidorah and Rodan's themes are instant classics, lending itself to the surreal world in which these giant anthropomorphic beasts do battle. Godzilla is not the star of this vehicle. He shares the spotlight with Rodan as they both appear simultaneously and begin tormenting one another. This is the film where the lesser of two evils scenario puts Godzilla in heroic light towards the end, and it will shape his presence in the series going forward. He's basically the brawler and commands much of the fight with the titular monster, while Rodan and Mothra fight the kaiju in more clever ways. His suit here is odd, as it looks to be a modified Mosogoji, but much more expressive and a bit goofy in close-up shots. His eyes move back and forth and gives off Cookie Monster vibes. He winds up being involved in many anthropomorphic gags, like getting shot in the ass and in the crotch by Ghidorah, shaking his foot when Rodan tosses a boulder on it, and expressing terrible language. The terrifying flying monsters from the 1956 film are gone, and the one who emerges from Mount Aso is an asshole, albeit a funny one, elevated to class clown status here. Rodan also holds his own against Godzilla better than most kaiju usually do. The two trade blows throughout, with Rodan using his flying capabilities to gain some upper hand attacks, like knocking Godzilla on his ass in a flyby and lifting him up and dropping him crotch first on an electrical tower. He spends a good portion standing and using his wings to blast Godzilla with some strong wind, and playing boulder volleyball against him as well. He gets some good moments in with Ghidorah too, air ramming the monster head on and drawing his fire behind some rocks. In what looks like a kaiju suggestion, he squawks at Mothra to climb on his back for a more elevated angle to which she can dispense her silk thread, instrumental in Ghidorah's defeat. This was the movie that made me a Rodan fan. Of the three monsters, Rodan's personality appealed to my 4-year-old self, as his on-screen antics made me laugh, all while appreciating his fighting prowess dealing with Godzilla and Ghidorah. His suit, while not my current favorite rendition of him, has a simpler design. It is his goofier face with curved down beak and expressive eyes, paired with the suit actor's exaggerated pecking movements that also lend itself to his overall person. The least interesting of Earth's trio, Mothra, is just a shiny brown caterpillar, now with red eyes. She's still great, especially being the most vulnerable of them, taking hard hits from Ghidorah, and mourning on her island. But she also displays courage and takes the mature route with the two boys, shaming them and showing them up as she is the first to take on the psychotic space dragon. As I had expressed earlier, the introduction of Godzilla's arch foe is the best Showa has to offer him. With each of the 3 entries he returns in it, his power feels less and less impactful, both in threat and energy. Here, he's a crazed psycho kaiju, born from a fireball erupting from a cracked meteor, and instinctively unleashes his unknown aggressions against civilization. Flying over cities, ripping buildings from the foundations, from his wings winds as he rains down bolts of yellow death, chirping madly as his heads flail about in glee over his orgy of destruction. The design is brilliant. The bright, shiny golden scaled armor is in stark contrast to the muted, earthy tones of Godzilla, Rodan, and Mothra. The vast wings, twin tails, and triple chittering dragon heads are all animated as the armless monster shows no fear in confronting all 3. Toho's villain kaiju designs have never felt so balanced as this, and as the years would come, the antagonists would vary in concept, but always try to compete with a 3-headed monster in outlandish ways. Science has always been a strong running theme in Godzilla films. Most of the time, it's more pseudoscience to fit the whimsical nature than actual proven facts. In this film, we get an assumed respected alien expert offer his theories to a number of odd events, and they are
This poor old planet of ours is about to blow up.
I don't believe the Earth will explode. And yet I know that something terrible is going to happen soon. Maybe the saucer people can warn us what to expect. They could tell us so we could warn the world.
Even in the age of UAPs, this is not a conversation we're having.
You know, I found one man who understood it.
Yes, it is possible for someone to be saved from an exploding aircraft. If we understand the curvature of space, we know that the continuum surrounding any spherical body such as our world is composed of different dimensions. The force of the explosion created a gap between these dimensions. And fortunately for her, she fell into it.
Wait, what is your field of science again exactly? Ghidorah, the 3-headed monster's English dub, has its fair share of quirky takes on matching mouth movements with guttural gestures and stunted speech. The chief among them is the boss of assassins, lounging around in his vintage wicker rattan fan chair in the Principality of Selgina. The boss of assassins, as his character is listed, is a shady individual who sometimes is referred to as Your Highness or Excellency. It could be assumed he may be a member of the royal family, seeking to bank on his lineage, perhaps a devious uncle to the princess. His most trusted minion, Malmis, acts as his enforcer, but not without some condescending treatment.
Then why is she in that picture?
How do you ask 3 questions in one sentence? Imagine a casual conversation with this guy. What did you have for dinner? The COA, as I will call him, speaks in fractured sentences, most likely to match the mouth movements and gestures, but comes off unintentionally hilarious. It adds to his villainy in a cartoon kind of way.
Very well, then go. Today, settle the matter.
Oddly enough, aside from an earlier foreshadow of this character, this is the last time we see him, but he leaves us with the greatest word to leave his lips.
So you will kill her. If you should fail, you will be killed.
The cold, unsympathetic would-be killer of the princess is depicted here as an abrupt yet wooden personality.
Settle the matter.
All right. Why do we kill her? Why?
3,000 volts?
Why not?
Everyone from Solgina seems emotionally stunted, and even his death in the end is hilarious, as he catches the boulder that does him in, before plummeting with it in the ravine. Not a double quirk, but it somehow adds to the overall performance of a guy who has trouble processing. His team is composed of shifty, mafia-looking goons in full hyperbole, completely with sleazy suits and the reference Malmus as a boss. I mean, look at the lockpick guy. Is the shoulder wind and the figure exercises really necessary? Each also comes with their own ridiculous mobster accent.
They got problems enough. They aren't going to bother with us. She hasn't been around lately, Chief. Don't worry, she'll show up again sooner or later.
The heroic lead, Shindo, divides his time yearning for the princess, who he must act as her bodyguard, and chastising his sister in the most chauvinistic and demeaning of ways.
Tell me, who's the new boyfriend?
Boyfriend?
Uh-huh. I wonder, is it him you really go for? Or his new car?
I'm not either. I'm trailing someone.
That's no job for a lady.
She's so...
Ayoko, you fool! What are you doing here?
No, Shindo! Give me that key or I'll call the police.
Oh, you stupid.
Again, while this is no masterpiece, it is a milestone film in the series in many ways. The biggest was the intro of Godzilla's most famous foe, who would be resurrected in almost every era following, and always touted as a major challenge for the King of the Monsters. Again, not just any kaiju, but one from space, which is a great way to introduce wild opposing forces going forward. In the same way King Kong vs. Godzilla may have kicked off the trend of Godzilla fighting an opposing kaiju, Ghidorah the three-headed monster furthered that with the trend of monster ensemble casts. Since then, the following Showa-era movies would most often feature more than 2 kaiju per movie, be it brand new, returning, or even by stock footage. Even in the 1970s, Godzilla vs. Ghidorah bucked the trend a bit, but it still had various forms of the same monster to keep it interesting. Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, also helped establish the 4 of the 5 Toho's Big 5 further by having these kaiju interact with one another, showcasing their personalities. Godzilla is the surly, begrudging brute, Rodan is the feisty jackass, and Mothra, the voice of reason, all opposing the hyper-manic anarchist King Ghidorah. Prior to this film, perhaps only Mothra maintained such virtues, and going forward, Godzilla's role would be more heroic, yet still surly. Personality, I believe, is what made Toho's kaiju viable. More than monsters, these creatures were made relatable in small ways. This movie also provided us with a glimpse of monster conversation, which would rear its head sporadically, be it Minya to Ichiro in All Monsters Attack, or Godzilla to Anguirus in Godzilla vs. Gigan, solidifying their humanistic qualities. And that's really it. The 4th outing in the Godzilla series is still at its high point, and the descent begins after the follow-up invasion of the Astro Monster, otherwise known as Godzilla vs. Monster Zero. Spoiler, Ghidorah is Monster Zero, and it will be celebrating its 60th anniversary this year. I'll get around to covering that hopefully before the next 12 months is up, but for now, if you enjoyed this retrospective, let me know down in the comments, and smash the like button. Please subscribe, and if you are new, and check out my other Godzilla-related content from the early years of the franchise here on Showa Showcase. Thanks for watching.